Imagine planting a single vegetable in your garden today and still harvesting fresh leaves from that same plant in the year 2030, 2032, or even longer. I am not talking about a tree. I am not talking about a berry bush. I am talking about a leafy green vegetable. In the world of modern agriculture, this is a biological impossibility. We are taught that vegetables are annuals. They live for 6 months, they give you one harvest, and then they die. But what if I told you that is a lie? What if I told you that there is a ghost vegetable from the 18th century that breaks every rule of biology? It is frost-proof, it is pest-resistant, and unlike the kale you buy at the supermarket, which rots after a week, this plant can live for 5, 7, or even 10 years continuously. So why haven't you heard of it? Why isn't it in every garden center in America? Why doesn't the industry want you to know about a plant that makes gardening effortless and produces a kale that is sweeter and tenderer than any other variety in existence? This is the story of Daubenton Kale. But if you are rushing to open a new tab to search for its seeds on Amazon and you click on a packet labeled Daubenton Kale, you are being scammed. I repeat, you are being scammed. If you buy those seeds, you will grow a weak, bitter imposter that will die in 6 months. Stay with me. I will not only explain the biological anomaly so you understand why you should never buy these seeds online, but I will also show you how to get the true immortal clone that has been passed down for 200 years. You will secure a vegetable source for the next 5 to 10 years that requires almost zero care. Sounds amazing, right? Welcome to Reclaimed Nature. To understand why this plant is a revolution, we have to travel back to a time before supermarkets, before refrigerators, before the concept of fast food. We are going to France. The year is 1780. The winters in Europe were brutal. When the snow fell, the wheat fields were dead, the orchards were bare. This period was known as the Hungry Gap, the terrifying months where the stored grain ran out and the spring crops haven't started growing yet. People didn't just get hungry, they starved. But a French naturalist named Jean-Louis-Marie Daubenton noticed something strange. He wasn't looking for food for humans. He was tasked by the government to find a way to keep the sheep alive during the winter. He found a peculiar type of wild cabbage growing in the coastal regions. It didn't look like a normal cabbage. It didn't form a tight head. It grew like a bush, wild, sprawling, and woody. And most importantly, when the frost hit and turned every other plant into black mush, this plant stayed green. Daubenton realized he had found a biological miracle. He started propagating it for the sheep. But then something happened. The peasants, the poor farmers who were tending sheep, started tasting it. They expected it to be tough and bitter like animal fodder. Instead, they found that the leaves were sweeter than any cabbage they had ever eaten. They were tender, they were rich. Suddenly, this sheep food moved from the barn to the kitchen table. For the next 100 years, the Choux Daubenton, or Daubenton's kale, became the silent guardian of the European cottage garden. It was the cut-and-come-again plant. You could walk out into the snow, cut a basket of leaves for dinner, and the plant would simply grow them back the next week. It was the ultimate food security. It required no plowing, no replanting, no fuss. It was the backbone of survival for generations of families who couldn't afford to fail. So, if it was so perfect, if it fed the poor and saved the livestock, why did it vanish? Why, after World War II, did this plant suddenly disappear from every seed catalog and every garden book in the Western world? The answer is not because it stopped working. It disappeared because a new enemy arrived, an enemy that cared more about speed than survival. The year is 1950. The war is over. The Green Revolution has begun. Tractors are rolling into fields. Chemical fertilizers are being sprayed from airplanes. The goal of agriculture shifted overnight. It was no longer about sustainability. It was about yield per hour. And in this new industrial machine, the Daubenton Kale was a glitch. You see, modern agriculture relies on a concept called clear-cutting. Farmers want to drive a massive combine harvester down a field, cut everything at once, till the soil, and replant. They need uniformity. They need obedience. But Daubenton is a rebel. It doesn't grow in neat little rows. It grows into a sprawling, chaotic bush that can reach 3 feet wide and 3 feet tall. It develops a woody stem, almost like a tree trunk, that would shatter the blades of a modern harvesting machine. It was too wild for the factory, so the factory rejected it. But there was a darker reason for its disappearance, a reason that hits your wallet. In the seed business, there's a term called recurring revenue. If a company sells you a packet of standard curly kale seeds, you grow them, you eat them, and the plant dies in winter. Come spring, you're back at the store, wallet in hand, buying another packet. You are a subscriber to their food system. But Daubenton, it is a one-and-done product. If a seed company sold you a Daubenton plant in 1955, you would still be eating from it and propagating it for free in 1965. You would never need them again. To a corporation, a vegetable that doesn't die is not a product. It is a threat. It is bad for business because it is too good for the consumer. So, they simply stopped listing it. They removed it from the catalogs. They stopped teaching it in agricultural colleges. They buried it alive. They replaced it with annual varieties that are genetically designed to bolt, flower, and die as quickly as possible, keeping you trapped in the cycle of buying and planting, buying and planting. They bet on the fact that we would forget. And for 50 years, they were right. But they made a miscalculation. They assumed that science would prove their modern hybrids were superior. But when botanists recently dragged this ancient ghost back into the lab, the results were humiliating for the modern food industry. Let's look at the data. Why is a 200-year-old plant biologically superior to the high-tech hybrids we have today? It comes down to the root system. An annual vegetable, like the ones growing in your garden right now, is a sprinter. It has a shallow root system because it knows it only has a few months to live. It sits in the top 6 inches of soil, screaming for water and begging for fertilizer. If you miss one day of watering in July, it wilts. Daubenton is a marathon runner. Because it lives for years, it establishes a massive, deep perennial root system. These roots punch down through the hardpan clay. They go deep into the subsoil where the minerals are locked away. It is mining nutrients that annual plants can never reach. Calcium, magnesium, iron. It pulls them up and deposits them into the leaves. This is why, when you eat Daubenton, you aren't just eating fiber. You are eating a multivitamin that the plant spent 5 years extracting from the earth. But the real shocker, the thing that validates the safety warning I gave you at the start, is its sugar content, or BRICS level. Most plants have a biological imperative, reproduction. They spend all their energy trying to make flowers and seeds. As soon as a kale plant starts to make flowers, the leaves turn bitter. The plant is moving its sugar from the leaves to the seeds. But true Daubenton is sterile. Due to a genetic anomaly centuries ago, it lost the ability to flower easily. It almost never produces seeds. This sounds like a defect, right? Wrong. It is a superpower. Because it cannot make seeds, it has nowhere to send its sugar. So it stores all that energy, all that sweetness, and all those nutrients in the leaves. It stays permanently in the vegetative state. This is why Daubenton leaves are sweeter, nuttier, and lack that sulfurous cabbage funk of modern kale. It is a plant that is perpetually young, even when it is old. And this brings us back to the scam. Because the plant is sterile, it does not produce seeds. Let that sink in. If you see a packet of Daubenton seeds for sale, ask yourself, how did they get seeds from a plant that doesn't make seeds? The answer is, they didn't. They are selling you a hybrid, a fake, a plant that will flower, will turn bitter, and will die in the first year. Science has confirmed the power of Daubenton lies in its sterility. But this creates a paradox. If there are no seeds and you can't buy it, how do you get it? Simple. You stop acting like a gardener and you start acting like a surgeon. Here is the protocol. Since you cannot plant a seed, you must perform a cloning operation. Daubenton propagates through cuttings. You are literally taking a piece of the living parent and creating a genetic copy. First, finding the source. Do not look at commercial nurseries. They won't help you. You need to go to the underground network. Search for permaculture groups, heritage seed libraries, or local food forest forums. There's a community of rebels out there keeping this plant alive. Ask for a Daubenton cutting. Once you have that cutting, a simple 4-inch stem, here is exactly what you do. Strip the bottom leaves off, leaving only the top tuft. Push that bare stem directly into a pot of moist soil. Bury it deep, about halfway up the stem. Now, the most important rule, keep it in the shade. Do not put it in the sun. The sun is the enemy of a rootless plant. In 3 weeks, magic happens. The sleeping nodes on the buried stem will wake up and explode into roots. Congratulations, you have just created a clone. Plant this clone in your garden. Give it space. Remember, it becomes a bush. And then, do nothing. Seriously, the biggest mistake modern gardeners make with Daubenton is pampering it. Do not overwater it. Do not baby it. This plant has survived French winters and world wars without your help. Let it struggle a little. The struggle makes the roots go deeper. The deeper the roots, the sweeter the leaves. Within 1 season, you will have a massive bush. And when you want more plants, you just snap off a branch and repeat the process. 1 plant becomes 10, 10 becomes 100. Free food forever. If you are ready to grow the vegetable that never dies, hit the like button. Subscribe to Reclaimed Nature because the most powerful technology on Earth doesn't need a patent. Knowledge is not lost. It is simply waiting for you to replant it.